This lie, lie, lie business.
That's politics she's talking about. Do they really lie? Or do their advocates just spin?
What is a gaffe if not a politician saying the truth?
Truth is good.
When I was a kid, I inhaled frequently.
I like being able to fire people who provide services to me.
But this season, campaigns go beyond truth.
Are you serious?
I'm serious about confronting political propaganda. That's our show tonight.
And now, John Stossel.
I could never run for political office because I don't keep my mouth shut. I offend people all the time. And sometimes what I mean to say doesn't come out right. During a mock presidential debate, I once said, college is stupid for some people. It is. But my own producers then turned that into an attack ad.
Don't vote for Stossel. He says,
college is stupid.
Stossel, bad for our kids.
So what do real candidates do when they say things that can be spun badly? My colleague Andrea Tanteros has some answers. You know her as co-host of The Five, but she used to be press secretary for the Republican leadership in the House. So you worked for Boehner and Company, and you then lied to us in the press about stuff?
Oh, I never lied. It was actually Hastert and Company and Tom DeLay, and we had the majority. But I got to tell you, John, the goal of press secretary is to be as honest as possible. But you can never lie to the media. It's a cardinal rule.
I assume you always lie to the media.
No, you have to think of a careful way to phrase things. It's a bit of verbal gymnastics. So, for example, I was working on a Senate campaign, and I knew that my candidate was dropping out of the race. But I couldn't tell the media that. And the media started to sense that there was turmoil. So what I would
Is he dropping out of the race, Andrea?
But is he dropping out? Well, he's a candidate for Senate today. And we're in it till we're out of it, John. And right now we're talking about the issues. Because right now we actually were talking about those issues. On Saturday, probably not. We would have been out of the race. So you have to think of creative ways to phrase things.
Something that caused Romney trouble recently was when he was caught on tape telling donors that 47% of Americans are takers, not makers.
Who believe that they're entitled to health care, to food, to housing, to you name it. That it's an entitlement, and the government should give it to them. And they will vote for this president no matter what.
So he took heat for that. How would you have handled that?
Well, in this instance, I think he could have explained it a little bit better. I think in those situations, you take a crisis, what could seem like a crisis, a video like that leaked, and you turn it into an opportunity. And I would have let President Obama attack first and then use it as a chance to explain myself and say, you know what? Those 47% deserve an opportunity. And there's a lot more checks going out the door than there are jobs being created. And I want to represent those 47% and make sure that they have a chance. And I will work for them. That's what you do. You spin Obama's policies, which are more checks, more dependents, and say, listen, that's a shame. It's a shame that they're getting a check. No one wants to get a check from the government. It doesn't feel good. Opportunity feels better. That's what I'm going to do for those 47%.
I thought he was saying it does feel good to them, that they like getting a check from it. Don't some people like?
I think some do. I mean, hey, I'm Greek, so I know what happened in Greece better than anybody. And I think giving people free stuff is politically seductive. And a lot of people don't want to work. But I think if you're going to spin it, and that's what you're asking me to do, that's how I would.
President Obama was criticized for saying this.
If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
The issue is that they kept saying, you took my words out of context. That wasn't the full quote. Stephanie Cutter came out. That wasn't the full quote. But the issue is, John, when you played the full quote, it only got worse from there.
But the rest of the quote said things like, you had a good teacher paid for by the government.
Yeah, it takes a village.
It takes a village. Why is that a bad argument?
Because I think if they were going to do it the right way, they would have done it more unity, altogether. Instead, it only made business owners feel really terrible about themselves. And there was a way they could have done it, I think, that didn't make them seem so hostile to business. And they didn't do that.
And it motivated some business owners to say, I want to get involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's return to Governor Romney. Here's something he said during the primary that brought him criticism.
I like being able to fire people who provide services to me.
Oh, I heard that soundbite when it came out. And John, I thought, that's going to be an ad right away. They're going to clip his words. He actually forgot a word. It should have been bad services. But I do think that would have been a chance for him to also explain the difference between government and the private sector. If someone's not producing, if someone's not helping you produce and be productive, you should have the right to fire them. Look at the government. A lot of people in government, we can't fire them. Like the current president, we got to wait 4 years. That one, he didn't handle that well.
A business that serves you, you can fire all the time, and that keeps them competitive. It's good. But
Exactly.
Romney didn't say that.
He didn't, and he didn't connect to workers either, who we've all worked with somebody who isn't producing. And so we get it. It means more work for us, and it means less profit for our employers.
President George W. Bush was criticized for trying to sell propaganda when 2 months after the invasion of Iraq, he flew to an aircraft carrier in the Pacific, and then with that big mission accomplished banner behind him, he declared,
"In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed."
So when he said that, everybody was thrilled. Why is that a gaffe?
I think the left tried to spin that it was a gaffe, but because it was so unsettling on the ground in Iraq, it didn't really mirror what a lot of the news reports were. However, again, if you're going to spin that, he was correct. They did accomplish the mission, which they outlined originally. At the time.
But then reality caught up with them in the next few months, and then
right.
that statement looked dumb.
Right. Well, they got into the whole nation-building issue. The initial goal was to topple Saddam Hussein. They accomplished it. Again, if I'm spinning this, I say it was also a nice pat on the back to our men and women in uniform who accomplished that goal. What's wrong with that? And my favorite thing as a press secretary, John, was the "oh, how dare you" response.
So as press secretary, you would say to the press, how dare you attack the military?
How dare you? Right? How dare you? He did that. He did that on a battleship. I mean, it was very patriotic. We accomplished the goal.
Now you're on television. You're just saying how you feel and what the truth is. But when you were doing this spin, do you ever feel dirty?
Sometimes. I wouldn't say dirty. I think I felt confined. And when I left politics and I left being a spokesperson for governors and senators and member of Congress, I said, I'm just going to speak for myself now. And it's much more freeing to be able to explain your own views.
You're cleaner now. It's more free.
It's more freeing when you can just say what you want to say whenever you want to say it. And I said I would never read talking points and I would never be mired by either party's positions. And I hope to do that every single day here on this network. So.
Thank you, Andrea. I hope you do. So politicians, to avoid having to deal with the likes of Andrea, try to stick to the script. They say the same things over and over.
For an economy that's built to last.
An economy that's built to last.
An economy that's built to last.
Oh, come on. I just think it makes them sound so phony. And Romney does it too. Still, Rohit Bhargava says the repetition is probably smart. Bhargava approaches political propaganda from a business angle. He's a marketing consultant and author of Likeonomics, a book about earning your customers' trust. Catherine Mangu-Ward is managing editor of the wonderful Reason magazine, and you agree with me that this is repetitious, tedious, but...
The fact is that these guys are screwed. They can either say the same thing every single day unto eternity, or they can try and mix it up a little bit, say what they really think, at which point they will inevitably be accused of having made a gaffe.
Because no human being can mix it up and not say something that keeps him from being elected?
You know, you spend a lot of time in the public eye. I think you probably know how hard it is to say exactly what you mean every single time. Michael Kinsley has a great line, which is that a gaffe is a politician accidentally telling the truth. And I think that's, that's something we can all relate to.
Roy, you say this repetition works. What seems to me stupid because I'm paying attention because I'm a reporter.
Yeah.
Most people are not paying that much attention.
Well, I mean, you see it in business all the time that they run ads over and over again. And the idea is that if they run it enough times, it'll be memorable. And I think, first of all, you got to also separate memorability from believability. Because just because somebody remembers a message doesn't necessarily mean they believe it.
Now, in terms of what people believe, you also argue it's good when the candidates say in the debate, tell a personal story.
Yeah, I think that people connect to people, and that's a fact that you see over and over again. And it's why politicians do everything from bringing in stories of the woman that they met in Ohio and what she told them about her life, all the way through to shaking hands and kissing babies, the oldest political cliche ever.
It makes me want to throw up. I can't believe voters like this. I mean, when Romney at the debate said, oh, my wife was at a rally in Denver, a woman came up and with a baby in her arms and said, Ann, my husband lost his job. Can you help us?
Yeah.
I mean, it just feels, it's not phony to people?
Well, it's I think it's the best that people have got. I think both of these guys are just trying to be as human as they can.
But that's ridiculous, right? Why should these guys have to pretend to be human?
They have to.
Presumably they are human. We'd like to see a little bit of evidence of that occasionally on the trail. But, as we saw with some of the clips you were playing earlier, when you get out there and say a casual phrasing, the kind of thing you would say at a bar to your buddy, it goes on C-SPAN, it goes on CNN, and you're there forever.
Rohit, let's talk about your expertise. You're a business strategy guy. You've counseled Intel, IBM, Amex. Things they do, politicians could do.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things you're seeing in a lot of business marketing is they're finally taking a different approach than the spokesperson model that we all know, which is you get one person, a guy or a girl, to go out there and talk on behalf of the company. And now what you're seeing is all of these companies putting their employees front and center. I mean, the IBM campaign is a great example of that. Smarter Planet, there's a person who stands up and says, this is what I'm working on, I'm an IBMer. And now all of a sudden it's not just the CEO, it's somebody who's working there that's saying, I'm really passionate about what I do.
Costco was honest about their price markups.
Yeah, Costco is an interesting one because they say publicly, we're only going to mark up the stuff that we sell you 15%. And actually, Costco gets a lot of value out of that, not only by having super, super loyal customers out there, but also by treating their employees fairly because they don't have employee turnover. Their employees stick around.
Domino's.
All companies do these focus groups, and they ask people, what do you think about our product? And usually it's a super secret thing. And Domino's put these people into ads, and the people said, your crust tastes like cardboard and your sauce tastes like ketchup. And they put those people in ads, and they said, you know what, we heard you, and we're not going to try and distract you with some sort of cinnamon-crusted thing. Instead, we're going to actually fix our pizza.
And that worked?
That's what they did, and that worked. They got record sales right after that. I mean, it worked.
Thank you, Rohit and Catherine. Coming up, Ann Coulter will defend Mitt Romney against my criticisms, and Ellis Hennigan will defend President Obama. But first, you remember this controversial political ad? The people behind it are here, and they will reveal its sequel to us for the first time here tonight. This election season, there was one political ad that I really like. This ad says what needs to be said about America's government.
This is the average American taxpayer feeding big government. Any questions?
No questions. Government pecks you to death. The campaign manager responsible for that ad is Mark Block. He ran Herman Cain's presidential campaign. Does he look familiar? He's not often on TV, but you may know him because he appeared in this other Herman Cain ad.
We can take this country back.
I am America. One voice, united we stand.
Ever since, Mark Block has been known as the smoking man because nobody smokes on television anymore. What were you thinking?
We were trying to get a message across, John, that the Cain campaign was non-traditional and knew that we had to do things totally out of the box to catch the public's attention. And it was kind of like in your face, just leave us alone. And it was... I'm
a smoker. It's not your business.
Exactly.
Leave people to indulge their vices.
It was the government is taking away so many of our liberties that we just wanted to be in your face. Had no idea that it would explode the way it did.
2 million people saw it on YouTube.
And over 24 million people saw it as it was played around the networks. So it accomplished a couple goals that we had, was to show that the Kane campaign was indeed outside of the box, but also to get that earned media, because we didn't have the budgets that the other campaigns had. We knew day one, John, that we would not have the finances to compete on the airways. It's fascinating, isn't it, that you took a man from nowhere in January and for 4 straight weeks at the top of the polls without spending a dime on media.
Well, you paid for that ad. You didn't spend the dime on TV stations.
That ad cost $386.
Maybe the technique worked. I would like to believe that this idea of government should leave us alone is popular with people.
I could tell you that we're on a 30-day, 30-city, 3 events in each city, 13-state tour.
You have a new group. Explain
Yes.
that. The Kane campaign's over, but he now leads the Job Creators Solutions group.
Yeah, Jobs Creators Solution is a organization co-formed by Bernie Marcus, the co-founder of Home Depot, and Herman Cain, whose mission is to educate the public on the issues that are facing us today.
Meaning educating people that government doesn't always make life better?
The government has to get out of the way, or this economy in this country is going down the tubes.
The chicken ad, where people say this is ridiculous, this is low budget, it's silly, it's beneath the importance of politics, and yet on Super Tuesday,
it was one of the most viewed YouTube videos out there, just like the smoking ad and the ads.
Got more hits than all the other guys running their commercials.
All combined, yes.
And the little girl who says, any questions, she's the director's daughter.
Yes.
This director, he works for other people, in addition to the smoking man ads. One is a congressional candidate who's running in California against Nancy Pelosi. Good luck to him. The media wasn't giving him much attention, so your director came up with this.
You're strangling job creation, Ms. Pelosi. You're burying us alive under a mountain of debt.
Or do you want 500 million Americans to lose their jobs?
500 million?
Are you serious?
I am John Dennis, and I approve this message.
And he's the candidate, but really, zombies, you could argue that the chicken ad, which I love, and the zombie, which I think is sort of silly, it gets you to dismiss the candidate.
Just the opposite, John. Nobody was paying attention to this candidate until that ran. Now the RNC is in that race, and people are paying attention. It had just the effect that it was supposed to.
Now, you've just made a new smoking man ad. Let's take a look at it. We're seeing it for the first time on this program.
Today, I'm pledging to cut the deficit we inherited by half by the end of my first term in office.
I will be held accountable. If I don't have this done in 3 years, then there's going to be a one-term proposition.
In response to a video.
A very offensive video.
This video
is a crude and disgusting video.
The video.
And what's this going to do?
We're hoping that it goes viral as the first one did. And the message is quite simple, is this president has been blowing smoke for the last 4 years, and it's time for him to go.
Thank you, Mark Block. Next, what about propaganda from President Barack Obama? He said he would create green jobs. He'd reduce the deficit. I'm ticked off about what he said versus what he does. But my next guest will defend our president. We'll fight next. Political propaganda. Some comes in political ads, but more often the candidates themselves spout propaganda. They make promises they don't keep, say things they don't mean, suck up to special interest groups. President Obama does that. Look at this clip from his debate against John McCain.
Actually, I am cutting more than I'm spending, so that it will be a net spending cut.
What? What net spending cut? He increased spending to $3.8 trillion. But Newsday columnist Ellis Hennigan says, I'm wrong to be so critical. Why am I wrong? He said he was going to cut, and he spent like a drunken sailor.
Well, listen, we don't want a president who is going to say something way before he becomes elected and then feel like he's completely, rigidly tied into that in a way that he can't deal with events as they happen. A lot of stuff happened in the last 4 years. Some of it was pretty bad, and you want a president who's in there being flexible for you.
Well, he was being really flexible.
Okay.
I mean, he said when he debated Hillary Clinton, he said he complained that government spends so much money on programs that don't work, and he was going to eliminate a whole host of them.
We need to eliminate a whole host of programs that don't work, and I want to go through the federal budget line by line, page by page. Programs that don't work, we should cut.
It would be great if he did, but he did almost none of that. It's just lying.
Well, hold on a second. I mean, there's an awful lot of money that's been spent, and much of it I don't support. But the reality is that we entered, in the early days of his administration, a huge fiscal problem that nobody was ready for, that nobody anticipated, the experts didn't warn us about, and we've spent the last 3.5 years trying to dig out of that thing, John.
He knew that when he was saying these things. The recession had already begun. The housing bubble had burst.
Yeah, actually, I don't think anybody knew it was going to be as bad as it turned out to be.
So because it was bad, he really meant to cut. I mean, there are no programs that don't work that he could have cut. He cut like a couple tiny things.
Clearly, there are a lot of things out there that
So why doesn't he do what he says he's going to do?
Listen, here is the reality. Presidents we expect to represent our values in the world. And one of those values is being careful and cautious about the money we spend. But there are a lot of other values. We want to have opportunity in the society. We want to train people for the future. We want to do some things that protect the weakest among us. And there are a whole series of other needs that we've come together as a people, and some of them cost a lot of money.
Well, all of them seem to cost a lot of money, and I would think the president is just selling us propaganda. Look at this.
After inheriting a $1 trillion deficit, I signed $2 trillion of spending cuts into law.
He signed spending cuts? $2 trillion in spending cuts?
They cut some stuff.
What he was saying is that over the next 10 years, instead of increasing spending by the $10 trillion I wanted to, I'll increase it by just $7.5 trillion.
Well,
I mean, isn't that deceit?
Well, it's kind of going...
Calling it a $2 trillion spending cut?
Well, listen, it's easy in kind of broad strokes to say, oh, gee, we shouldn't spend all this money, okay? But the real challenge is looking at these things and making judgments, value judgments, about what it is that we want to do as a society. Do we want to spend money on defense? Do we want to educate our kids? Do we want to have cops and firefighters? Do we want decent roads?
Cops and firefighters, that's local government's responsibility.
Well, sometimes the federal government gets into that.
Defense, he said he was going to end these wars. He's keeping an embassy with 15,000 Americans in Iraq. He wants to spend more on defense, not as much as Romney, but more. He wants to spend on everything.
Right. Well, listen, I'm not going to disagree with you and fight you on every one of these issues, because there are some things that I wish we would cut. I mean, would rather get out of Afghanistan quicker than we're doing it. I mean, there are things. The answer is not, I don't think, for any reasonable person to defend all spending programs at all times. But what we have in our politics, really, in the end, is a fight over priorities, isn't it?
Here's one last reason why I don't trust your favorite candidate.
The war on drugs has been an utter failure, and I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
What I'm not going to be doing is using Justice Department resources to try to circumvent state laws on this issue.
And he absolutely has. He's raided more of these marijuana dispensaries than Bush's people did.
John, I got to tell you, you're eloquent on that. I like the early Obama there that I did the later Obama. It's a huge waste of money. We could do 1,000 better things.
So what's this about? Why is he a hypocrite?
I think he has bowed to political pressure on it. I hope that in the second term he's going to come around and do a better job of that, and let you and I pressure him on it, because that is truly the biggest waste out there, is that failed war on drugs.
The real wars are a big expense as well.
They cost a lot of
money. It's good we can agree on something. Thank you, Ellis Hennigan. Stay with us, because the audience will quiz you later. But coming up, I want to trash Mitt Romney. Ann Coulter is here to defend him. Several years ago, I heard Mitt Romney speak at the Manhattan Institute, and I was thrilled. This guy understands markets, free markets. He cares about limiting government. Finally, a politician who understands that too much regulation kills opportunity. But then the official campaign began, and what I've heard since is pandering. He wants to start a trade war with China. He wants to enlarge the military. He sounds like a big government guy. But the author of the new book, Mugged, Ann Coulter, is here to say, I'm wrong about that. What do you mean I'm wrong? He's saying these big government things.
Yeah, what you call pandering is called getting elected. And, you know, the golden boy of the libertarians, Rand Paul, nearly blew up his campaign when he gave the libertarian answer on the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And suddenly he was pandering on that, John Stossel.
All right, let's play some clips. Romney says he'll repeal Obamacare. Yippee! But he wants to keep the popular parts.
Number one, pre-existing conditions are covered under my plan.
Well, that's popular. Nobody likes the idea that if you have a pre-existing condition, it's not covered. But that's not insurance, that's welfare.
Okay, this is what our entire segment should be on. I am completely blowing off your obsession with drug legalization here. Because health care, I mean, if we do not repeal Obamacare in the next few years, America takes the
Repeal it, but keep the expensive parts? You also want to cover the kids to age 26?
Into 1,000 years of darkness. This is why you have to vote for, I don't care if it's Mickey Mouse or Big Bird. But Romney is far more free market than any recent Republican candidate, including George Bush. What Romney is talking about here is the free market. And as you say, pre-existing conditions, popular, like Big Bird.
But that's not the free market. If everybody has to cover pre-existing conditions, it's a handout.
No, nobody said everybody has to cover it. The answer is the free market. If it's popular, it will be provided on the free market. I bet you, I mean, there are insurance products we can't even think of, including buying insurance for your unborn children. You don't know what their pre-existing conditions are. The fact that people talk about pre-existing conditions shows that, wow, there's a market for that. I think the free market will respond to that. Instead, we don't have that. The problem with health care, and the reason Romney Care was a libertarian solution for a governor to provide, because a governor can't repeal all the federal government stuff, is that right now you already have government intervention. Government pays for nearly 50% of all health care in America. It is already 50% socialist. Romney is going to roll it back, apply free market magic, and everything you want covered is going to be covered. Instead, right now you can't buy insurance unless it also covers marital counseling, gambling,
all true,
addiction,
all that's thrown together.
Leg syndrome.
But a free market would, yes, give you all kinds of choices. But he's saying we're going to force every insurance company.
He's not saying force. Where did you? I did not say force.
Cover pre-existing conditions.
My plan will cover it. The free market will cover it. I promise you that is what he means.
Okay. Another big government Republican topic: increased spending on the military. We're going broke. We spend more than all the other countries combined, or as much. How can we afford this?
Well, for one thing, I do trust Romney to cut a lot of government, more than Ronald Reagan did. This is a free market guy. He saved companies from going into bankruptcy. He saved the Olympics from going into bankruptcy. In Massachusetts, the Soviet Union, he balanced the budget and cut taxes. You need someone who will go through the budget line by line and look at the things that can be cut.
He says he's going to increase military spending by $2 trillion.
You know, with the booming economy we're going to have under Romney, we will have so much money we won't know where to spend it, and the military is... All
right, I'm moving on. Here's something your candidate said at the debates that just appalled me. Let's watch this.
I'm not going to cut education funding. I don't have any plan to cut education funding.
Education is supposed to be a local responsibility. The federal government spending $100 billion, wasting it, intruding. He can't even cut that?
This is unfair. You know, I admitted to you in the green room that this was the one even I couldn't defend. But
All
I will
right.
just say, Romney has said in his defense on education, and he has said it over and over again, that we, for example, with the money for disabled kids or kids with special needs, he said, we want to send that money to the parents, let them pick the school. He's talking about vouchers there. He said we want to send the money back to the local government, to the state government. Now, unfortunately, I know why not just not send it to Washington in the first place. I know, John. But he has to get elected. And this, I think, will be a process of sending it back to the states, which is where it should have been in the first place.
Another answer that made my eyes roll was when President Obama bragged he'd fought for the Lilly Ledbetter Act, which allows women more time to sue companies for alleged wage discrimination. Mitt Romney seemed to agree that women need special treatment. Let's take a look.
We took a concerted effort to go out and find women who had backgrounds that could be qualified to become members of our cabinet. I went to a number of women's groups and said, can you help us find folks? And they brought us whole binders full of women.
All right, the binders thing has been discussed, but couldn't he give a free market answer and say, what do you mean women are discriminated against? Women are paid less because women make different choices. And in a free market, if somebody did discriminate, they'd lose out. Instead, he says, oh, I hired women.
I must say, I cheered when that happened, and especially when liberals were so stupid to find something humorous in an office product, binders of women. I mean, this is the way it's supposed to work. You do want to break things like the old boys network and people who are just career politicians. This is the way affirmative action, if that's what you want to call it.
Do you women need affirmative action? You women are dominating colleges. You dominate much of life. Life is fair now. The glass ceiling is gone.
Yes, not only that, but we nag you to death, live longer, and take all your Social Security. But
that
besides that, leaving that aside for a moment, the way Romney did it was he got more qualified women by expanding the search. That is the way it should work. Expand the search to get the best people.
One last complaint about your candidate, for now anyway. On day one, I will label China a currency manipulator. Maybe raise tariffs. He wants to start a trade war. He wants people to have to pay more for things.
I think that you're having a knee-jerk reaction to the word tariffs. This is a major problem with China. And
why is it a problem? They want to give us stuff cheap.
No. That's not the issue, John Stossel. The issue is the intellectual theft, and he has said that over and over again in the debates. And every libertarian I know is very concerned about intellectual theft.
Intellectual theft?
And by China in particular.
I agree, but he's talking about currency manipulation.
Oh, and currency manipulation.
But that just means that Chinese people suffer in order that we can buy cheaper T-shirts. We win.
If we continue for 5 more seconds on currency manipulation, I'm going to need a bottle of No-Dos.
All right, but please stick around. Our audience is eager to respond to some of what you said, and then I'll show a campaign ad that really makes sense to me.
See, all you guys want, you want a handout. I don't have something in it, now you're getting mad again.
Now, your comments or questions for my guests, columnist Ellis Hennigan and Ann Coulter, author of Mugged. First, from my Facebook page, David Gerald asks, ask them both to name something their guy was completely wrong about.
I think it's not exactly being wrong. Conservatives are not enthusiastic about the war in Afghanistan. I think most conservatives think it would have been better if Mubarak had stayed and not been replaced by the Muslim Brotherhood. I think that's very hard to explain. In Egypt, and moreover, Republicans. It's over. Republicans aren't Democrats. We don't criticize military action that's already been taken. But conservatives understand that, and I don't speak for Romney. I don't know if I'm right about that, but I suspect that's just an example of Republicans not criticizing military action that's already been taken.
Ellis?
Oh, extending the Bush tax cuts. Obviously, it didn't get us the bank we needed. It extended the unfairness up and down the economy, and it made the deficit that you care so much about a whole lot worse.
Taxes not high enough. Okay. Yes.
What exactly makes you think that Romney's going to provide this blooming economy that you're talking about?
Well, for one thing, he did it in Massachusetts. He's done it with companies over and over again. He is exactly what the nation needs now. Because, as he says, the government doesn't create jobs. We got trickle-down government. We need government to get out of the way. Just to repeal Obamacare. If nothing else happened, if Romney did not do what I expect him to do with the economy, simply to repeal Obamacare is going to work miracles on the economy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a CIA operative told Washington Post editor Philip Graham that journalists can get bought and paid for less than the price of a call girl, which is, he mentioned $300 a month. Do you think Fox News journalists or journalists in general are guilty of taking money from the government to push propaganda? And do you think Fox News is guilty of taking money from the government to push propaganda?
How did he come up with the call girl price? That's what I want to know.
I think he's got a lot of call girls, actually.
I'll answer.
CIA.
I'll answer that. I understand people believe that, but no. The government, if they tried to I was a consumer reporter. Businesses didn't even try to bribe me. You can't keep these things a secret. If they tried, it would get out. It's not happening. People who have stupid ideas have them all by themselves. Who's next? Yeah.
I was struck by pretty much all the presidential debates that the moderators, especially the lovely Candy Crowley, seemed completely biased. And I was wondering how long the Republicans are going to let them get away with this.
I couldn't agree more. When you first heard the list announced, not Brit Hume, not Chris Wallace. And, I mean, one great thing about the Candy Crowley debate was it was so biased that I think the rest of America saw what it is right-wingers are screaming about.
Ellis, you agree they were biased on your side?
You know what I notice? People never complain about the officiating when they think their guy won. I mean, that's really what the complaints are about.
I think he won all of them.
You put him into the room, you see how your guy does it. If you don't like the way it came out, oh my God, Candy was unfair and this other one was unfair. You know what? Why don't we just put him out there without moderators? I think that would be fine too.
Yes.
What's the challenge that a president faces in actually trying to cut government programs? Why is it so hard for any president to cut government programs?
Well, the political reality is that every one of those programs has a constituency that's served by it. And so there's a reason it was there in the first place. People pushed it in and got it done through Congress. And so anytime you want to cut, somebody loves every last one of them.
Thank you, Ann Coulter. Ellis Hennigan.
Thank you.
It's my job to educate people about how we're going broke, and we have to cut. I haven't done a good enough job. Coming up, what I wish President Obama would say. Governor Romney, I'd like to apologize to you. I did you wrong. In a recent TV show, I included a section on political gaffes, and as one example, we played this clip.
I like being able to fire people who provide services to me.
I like being able to fire people. The political class criticized you for saying that you like to fire people. They called it a gaffe, but it wasn't a gaffe. It was a good point. You were saying it's good if you, not the government or your employer, had the power to pick your health insurance company. Then you could fire an insurance company that doesn't serve you well, or any other company. This is a good and important thing. The right to fire businesses you don't like makes the free market work, makes providers improve. You fire people all the time. We hear about heartless companies, but think how heartless you are. If you get shoddy merchandise even once, you take your business elsewhere. If you get a bad burger, you don't hesitate to switch to another restaurant. That freedom makes both McDonald's and Burger King try harder. That's why the free market's better than government, because government rarely gives you a choice. If your kid is in a bad public school, you can't fire the school and choose another. Government controls your choices. The same is true for the motor vehicle department. Under Obamacare, you may not be able to fire your doctor. Romney made an important point when he said it's good to be able to fire people who provide services to you. But trying to explain that to some people is like talking to donkeys.
See, all you guys want, you want a handout. I don't have something in it, now you're getting mad again, okay? These donkeys don't live in the United States of France. They live in the United States of America. They're going to have to get with it. Have you ever heard of the Constitution? It's a great document. They keep thinking that Obama's going to take care of them, that Obama's going to feed them, Obama's going to build their barn. See those big ears? You still can't hear me. Unbelievable.
That political spin was made by a Texas congressional candidate, and he's favored to win. I prefer his take to my president's, who spins propaganda, says one thing and does another. Listen.
We are going to ban all earmarks.
He said that, but the first spending bill he signed had more than 9,000 earmarks. Candidate Obama criticized Hillary Clinton for wanting to force people to get health insurance.
She believes that we have to force people who don't have health insurance to buy it.
She believes in force, a mandate. Imagine that. And yet, once elected, he endorsed that. I just wish they'd be honest. Heck, I might even vote for Barack Obama if he'd just say something like this.
When I was elected, I promised that I would get a handle on the national debt. But I didn't. I said I'd cut wasteful programs, but I did not. Then I brought together a bipartisan group of really smart people to recommend how to put us on a sustainable course. But then I did not even try to do what they said. Now I realize that we are on the road to bankruptcy. And I will undo my mistakes. I will cut regulation and shrink government spending to Bill Clinton levels. $2.4 trillion in spending is more than enough.
I can dream, can't I? 2.4 trillion in spending. That would be this huge improvement. But I'm not likely to see that. That's our show. Thanks for watching. Good night.